support lines are overwhelmed and customers are getting hung up on as they try to figure out what's going on after tens of thousands of games have been removed from itch.io and Steam. These gamers are just trying to get answers, but nobody from Visa seems to have a clear explanation. In the meantime, Mastercard has released an official statement for this issue. Both Steam and itch.io are facing a massive wave of censorship. On itch.io, the platform completely de-indexed all adult content from search and browse pages. This was a drastic move, which itch.io confirmed they had to make to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. But this isn't just an itch.io problem. Steam has also been quietly delisting games even after the first initial ones. More games are getting removed from Steam, even some with very little adult content. The reason for all of this is intense pressure from payment networks like Visa and Mastercard, or even other ones like PayPal and Stripe. Although some want to just blame Steam for removing these games, they essentially had no choice. In a post Collective Shout made trying to celebrate, as they really only care about censoring as many things as possible, they specifically mentioned how they tried to get Steam to listen to them for months, but obviously Valve never listened. So they had to take it a step further and complain to payment processors instead, which is where these companies like Visa and Mastercard were able to abuse their power and force games to get removed. Now, itch.io is taking a two-part approach to this problem. The first is a long-term plan, finding new payment partners who are more accepting of a wider range of content. This is a crucial step for the platform to become less dependent on the rules of a few powerful companies. While this doesn't fix the underlying issue of these payment processors controlling what gets sold, it gives itch.io a fighting chance to bring back the removed content and continue supporting adult games. Itch.io has begun relisting some free adult games. This is a huge piece of the puzzle. Since these games don't require a payment processor, their return proves that the issue isn't with itch.io or Steam's rules, but with the financial companies themselves. Like we talked about in our last video, gamers aren't having any of it and are now using the same tactics Collective Shout used to express their complaints to payment processors like Visa and Mastercard. I am actively seeing more reports of users calling these companies to complain, and this organized effort is having a visible effect on their customer service. Support staff are now clearly overwhelmed. I have seen a bunch of reports and stories from people who have said they called Visa and then would just get hung up on, which I 100% believe because every time I've called Visa, I would get a similar response. It would start off great, but as soon as the customer service agent on the other end realized what I was talking about, whether it was because I mentioned Steam or video games or censorship, they would instantly speak over me, tell me to send an email, and then just hang up. Even if I didn't stop talking, they would just sigh and repeat the same response over and over. Another time, the Visa rep just reread the Visa email we talked about in our previous video before hanging up like that was supposed to fix the issue. Every call had nearly the exact same response from Visa saying to email so they can send you this copy-paste response, and then they would just hang up. With every call having a similar response, it seems extremely likely that the Visa support staff was briefed on the situation and what to say, or in this case, say pretty much nothing at all and then just hang up. It seems pretty clear that Visa is now getting overwhelmed by the backlash, although some will say don't annoy these innocent employees who have no say in the matter. Well, this is the exact strategy Collective Shout used, and it worked. So as Visa seems to be getting tired over the phone, it doesn't seem like gamers are stopping anytime soon. The goal is to make Visa realize that if they want to listen to these activist groups like Collective Shout, the backlash will be much larger. Now, as I'm making this video, even Mastercard has responded to the situation. Previously, we had Visa, and now is Mastercard, saying clarifying recent headlines on gaming content. Mastercard has not evaluated any game or required restrictions of any activity on game creator sites and platforms, contrary to media reports and allegations. Our payment network follows standards based on the rule of law. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls to ensure Mastercard cards cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal adult content. So very similar to Visa, they're pretty much saying that they allow all lawful purchases and really only go after illegal adult content. But within just hours of this being posted, it has quickly been community noted, saying both Steam and itch have stated their removal of adult content came from pressure by payment processors, including Mastercard. Furthermore, Mastercard and other payment processors have a documented history of refusing service to Japanese retailers over legal adult content. So although both Visa and Mastercard are trying to deny it, their history speaks for itself. Although these obviously aren't the responses we want, I think this is a pretty good sign because it shows we have these payment processor companies' attention. And if we potentially keep up the pressure, they will just have to listen. Stripe, which is one of the main payment processors used on itch.io, has directly addressed the situation. They confirmed that they will not be able to support adult content that fits the following definition: content designed for sexual gratification. Stripe also wanted to pass this message along to gamers. Stripe is currently unable to support sexually explicit content due to restrictions placed on them by their banking partners, despite card networks generally supporting adult content with the appropriate registration. Stripe has indicated that they hope to be able to support adult content in the future, which is a bit interesting because they say they want to support adult content in the future, but due to their banking partners, they can't. This raises the next question: who are these banking partners? When Stripe explains why they can't work with certain businesses, they point directly to the strict rules and regulations of payment networks like Visa and Mastercard. This proves that even though Stripe in this situation is the direct processor, they are still under the control of these larger networks like Visa and Mastercard. If you remember this elevated risk line from Visa's email, well, it's back. When Stripe explains businesses that pose a brand risk, pornography is included. Financial institutions and payment networks care about the brand and reputational risk that associated businesses pose. There are a set of businesses that our financial partners do not want to be associated with, even if there is a market demand for them. Stripe doesn't independently reject businesses based on brand risk. We have many unpopular businesses and causes on Stripe, but we are at times obliged to enforce the restrictions of our partners. This confirms what we've seen before. Visa and Mastercard have the power to force companies to follow their rules. They don't necessarily have to be a direct payment processor on a platform like itch.io, they just have to be somewhere in the payment chain to have complete control. Stripe even further explains this when they tried to work with a startup, but were forced to stop after their financial partners did not agree. So although Visa claims they don't moderate content, they simply just force any company they are working with to follow their rules, or they won't work with them. This shows a very dangerous power dynamic, where a few powerful financial companies can dictate what is and isn't acceptable, even when the content is perfectly legal. But as Itch has confirmed, they are currently in talks with new payment processors, which will hopefully be a step in the right direction. I have reached out to Valve for a statement on if they will be looking for new payment processors or going to be re-adding crypto as an option. So if I hear back, I will for sure give you an update. Of course, these aren't solutions that will fix the underlying problem, as it seems like we will need the government to get involved, but it will at least give control back to these platforms so they don't have to follow the rules of these payment processors. The outcome of this situation will have a long-lasting impact on gamers and developers everywhere. Will platforms like Steam find a stable solution, or will this be a permanent shift in what kind of content is allowed online?